And so we're hoping with this US product, with our 530 million customers worldwide, we can connect these emerging markets to the US capital markets and create these corridors that have never been established before in finance. And I think that Tether is probably the only company positioned to do that in the world.
They aren't just holding Bitcoin in their reserves. They are building the mining hardware, the trading desks, and the security protocols that protect the network. Hines views stablecoins as the invitation to the Bitcoin ecosystem. In a post-Genius world, USAT and USDT are the first digital assets most people ever touch. Once they are comfortable moving value across chains with 95% efficiency, they naturally gravitate toward the granddaddy of them all, Bitcoin. Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space and drop your comments and observations in the comment section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.
Yeah, first and foremost, we had a blast. Obviously, with David being in there, we set the mission forward to move at tech speed, and I feel like we did that in that office. Patrick was the deputy there, who's now in my former role. But it was just fun. We moved at lightning speed to try to get as many things accomplished that we possibly could. Obviously understanding the nature of political cycles and how these things work, we felt like we had momentum early and we captured it. But I think that the biggest question that we had to answer when we first arrived was, what bill do we want to put forward first? And that was kind of the debate between Genius and Clarity. Obviously, we were able to get Genius passed this past July, but the Clarity debate continues to rage on. I do not envy Patrick in this position right now. But I think one of the things that might be lost on some people is, yes, we were able to get the SBR done through executive order. Obviously, we hope to see that, cemented, through congressional action. But we had the President's Working Group report on digital assets that was also released, and this was probably the most comprehensive regulatory framework ever produced by a government in terms of what the digital assets ecosystem should look like. And I encourage you to go take a read. It's crypto.gov. You can go look at it, kind of comb through it and see everything that's in there. But, our goal was to kind of lay the groundwork for a brave new world in the financial system. And so with Genius, obviously, stablecoin regulation gives us the on and off ramp we need to enact a world in which I think a lot of us in the technology space have dreamed of, in the digital assets world, where we have 24/7 markets and all of that, grandiose stuff. So I loved my time there. I felt like it was the right time to move on after Genius was passed. I think I got kind of leveraged into being the bully a little bit on that bill. So it's always good to have a fresh voice in the room, for the next phase. But post that report, decided to step back, and that's what's led me to be the CEO of Tether US now. It's the other piece of the puzzle in order to have the complete picture that we need in order to progress things forward. I think it's probably 80 to 90% likely that it passes. We're down to, a few, small details that we need to iron out here. And really the biggest one being about UX structure. And, I say that because everyone in the media is talking about this yield debate between banks and the crypto natives. I really don't think it's a yield debate. It's more of a UX debate, meaning that do you have to be an OCC-chartered bank, and do you have to have a separate platform in order to pass that yield along to your customers? And this really only pertains to one actor in the space. And so I think that a lot of the folks in the crypto world are now unified around this. And I think that the banks are coming to terms with the fact that, obviously stablecoin adoption is here and integration is about to begin. And so I'm confident they'll get to the right place. And, knowing how David and Patrick work, both brilliant people, I think they'll find a good landing spot.
Talk about Tether US and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, well, look, I think Tether is arguably the most important player in the crypto ecosystem that's not a commodity. And, we have about 530 million customers now. We're growing at about a clip of 30 million a quarter, which is pretty remarkable. We're the 13th largest holder of gold in the world. And we're also, huge Bitcoin maxis here at Tether. But it's just a very unique company, 300 employees, 10 billion in profit in 2025. Under the Genius Act in this brave new world, we decided that we wanted to launch a Genius compliant stablecoin product here in the US to service institutions and work on that integration that we had attempted to set up in the White House with this bill. So, it's been a wild ride over the course of the last year. We move very fast. We're a lean, mean machine. But it's remarkable how organized everything is inside of the orbit. And that's truly a testament to how Paolo runs the business from the international side. And so we're hoping with this US product, with our 530 million customers worldwide, we can connect these emerging markets to the US capital markets and create these corridors that have never been established before in finance. And I think that Tether is probably the only company positioned to do that in the world. Tether's much bigger than just a stablecoin company. We're prolific investors in the technology space. We're building everywhere, whether it's in robotics, whether it's in infrastructure. We're constantly looking for, ways to improve the system. And I think that, for folks that really care deeply about Bitcoin, stablecoin integration is a huge boon for the ecosystem writ large, because it's an on-ramp into this digital assets world that allows people to be able to move in and out of assets like Bitcoin and these other commodities in a much quicker and more efficient way. And I think that's a great thing. It's still very inefficient to move money in the US. I mean, our rails are 95% efficient compared to the rest of the world, but it's not very cost effective. You're limited to the time frames in which you can move money on a larger scale. And stablecoin adoption really changes the world dramatically in all of these different verticals. And so, you can think about it from like a settlement perspective, whether it's intra or interbank settlements. Obviously, this allows, let's say, Korean banks to actually participate in U.S. capital markets on a Friday afternoon because they have a settlement mechanism and a vehicle to do so post-close. And so I think that the biggest thing right now as we think forward is, what does the infrastructure look like? Obviously, like, let's say you're trying to move, NYSC on chain and have all of that trading take place there and have the on and off ramps be stables. The infrastructure has to be able to support it and it has to be cost effective. And so I think that there's a race right now to build chains in which, it actually makes this reasonable and palatable for folks to move forward and create a world that behaves in this way. But stablecoin adoption from the institutional side brings obvious savings to banks and other merchants alike. You go from T2 to T1 to T0 with stablecoins. You're not waiting for intermediary settlements any longer. And so, for businesses, this is also huge. For U.S. consumers, it's great just from a remittance perspective. But I think what you're going to see from UX adoption is a lot of these folks should be building these products all into one. And so you start thinking about origin points, whether it's payroll companies paying their employees in stable coins rather than on a bi-monthly basis, right? They can get paid on a daily basis now. They can, programmatically say, hey, I want to send 10% of my daily paycheck, to somewhere in LATAM or somewhere in Asia. And so, packaging these financial products in a way that the consumer doesn't have to think about engaging with stables is the way that we want to move forward. And I think that what you'll find with U.S. citizens, they have access to many money transfer mechanisms, but they're still very costly.
Hines describes Tether as a prolific investor in robotics, infrastructure, and Bitcoin mining. But the core mission remains the same: providing financial access to the underserved. By connecting emerging markets in Latin America and Asia to U.S. capital markets through stablecoin corridors, Tether is doing what traditional banks haven't done in 95 years. They provide the deepest liquidity and the best distribution. And with the USAT product, they are now bringing that efficiency directly into the regulated U.S. orbit.
What we do is we provide the deepest liquidity and the best distribution. And so that's how we attract our customers. I mean, our market cap right now is around 185 billion. And obviously we've talked about the numbers of adoption in terms of how many people use the product. So we have, the on and off ramps back into fiat that people are looking for, especially on an institutional scale. And so I think that, again, the larger question here is whether or not you can be a broker, exchange, and a bank all in one. Someone called this shadow banks. And I think this is where the banking industry starts to tighten up a little bit and starts to be protective of their territory. I think that the easy solution here is to get an OCC charter. And that way you can engage in the same model of yield sharing relationships that you could with your consumers, just like a bank would. And I think that's probably going to be the landing place with clarity. I don't see how banks could be opposed to that. It's clean for the crypto natives. The OCC is moving very quickly in terms of handing out banking charters to crypto native companies. And so, we're in a world in which we can do this. But for us, we're kind of sitting on the sidelines just as patient, observationists at the moment when it comes to this bill, because it really doesn't have a direct impact on us. There's going to be, I'll start here, there's going to be immense, in my opinion, chain consolidation, stablecoin consolidation over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. The market here will behave just like any other market does, except it's going to be exponential in terms of how it shapes. And that's just the way in which the world of crypto moves. But I think that as you start seeing people build, especially in the wallet space, like Tether's working on WDK, which is our wallet development kit. This is an immense project for us. And, we believe that having the point of origin for the customer is extremely important. And I think that's where the race will go. So you'll start seeing people package, a lot of these financial services into these wallets, which is tremendous for the consumer. Tether's main mission over the course of the last 7 years has been to provide access to people that don't have the direct ability to engage with financial instruments that we need in our day-to-day lives to live. And that's something that we've accomplished in areas that a lot of people didn't think was possible 10 years ago. It's just creating that financial access brings people together, and we're still very committed to doing that over the course of the next few years as we start working on these wallets and other financial instruments.
You mentioned that you guys are Bitcoin maxis. Again, another understatement. Describe why is Tether good for Bitcoin, or what are the activities that Tether engages in that supports Bitcoin?
Well, look, we love Bitcoin. Obviously, Bitcoin acts as, part of our reserves currently. We're big in Bitcoin mining. We're big in Bitcoin trading. Basically every facet of the Bitcoin ecosystem we are engaged in. And I think that what you'll see with stablecoin adoption is, again, it provides these on and off ramp vehicles for people to actually engage with a commodity like Bitcoin. And so oftentimes, especially in a post-Genius world, stablecoins will be the first introduction to the digital asset ecosystem that people have. And with that, they start getting comfortable with how things move across chain. And obviously, Bitcoin being the granddaddy of them all, I think it'll be an invitation for people to actually use that as an investment vehicle of choice. And we're already starting to see wider spread adoption with larger institutions and multinationals. I think recently Bank of America announced they're allowing their wealth managers to start allocating funds of their clients into Bitcoin. The adoption is just beginning. And that's why I think that if you've been around this space for quite some time, which I'm sure many of you have, like these cycles aren't as scary as people make them seem, right? It's volatile, sure. But I, again, think that we're just in the infancy of what this looks like long term. And, the integrations of our products and others will only provide a cleaner pathway into this Bitcoin community for folks that want to engage in it.
Talk about the Tether transparency, the attestations, maybe the mix of, you mentioned Bitcoin, gold, treasuries. Like, there's a pretty diversified basket on the back end. And so how do you guys think about those components?
Yeah, gold, Bitcoin, and T-bills, right? I think this year will be...
Sounds like you're like Charles Schwab or something.
This year, I think we'll end up being a top 10 purchaser of T-bills. I think right now we're the 17th largest holder of T-bills in the world, including all sovereign states. And we're obviously increasing the amount of T-bills we have in the reserves as we move towards this Genius compliance standard. And so obviously, I firmly believe that USDT will also have reciprocity. And so we want to make sure that we fall, into this Genius compliant regulatory system. But, currently we have USAT that fits that mold. And then we have 3 years to kind of get there on the USDT side. But in terms of the excess we have, we're still going to be certainly, heavily invested in Bitcoin and looking to continue to grow our presence in that ecosystem long term.
What are you worried about going forward? Are there any big risks or anything that you think are need to be addressed?
I think that privacy is something that we're going to have to think about very deeply over the course of the next few years. It's something that the consumers demand. It's something that they deserve. And I think that there's also a race to create products that also allow people to have the privacy while engaging with this technology on a larger and greater scale. So, that's probably a conversation that could last 45 minutes to an hour if we really got into it. But I'll be curious to see how a lot of the folks working on this develop their technologies around it in the coming years.
Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space, and drop your comments and observations in the comment section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks, and enjoy the video.